Hi, I'm Himavan Barma and you're watching my show on the role of a human resource professional. Human resources professionals are the lifeline of the organization because their job is to ensure that the business gets the most out of its employees. In other words, the human resource department aims to provide a high return on the business's investment in its people. HR management helps bridge the gap between employees' performance and the organization's strategic objectives. Moreover, an efficient HR management team can give firms an edge over their competition. Without a proper functioning human resource department, a company would fail to achieve a high level of efficiency and workforce management. Human resources is important to organizations in different areas, ranging from strategic planning to company image. HR practitioners in a small business who have well-rounded expertise provide a number of services to employees. The areas in which HR maintains control can enhance an employee's experience throughout the workforce while strengthening business operations. So let's talk more about this subject with someone who is here on my show today. Hello, today we have with us Ms. Sonal Pathak, an entrepreneur and a seasoned HR professional. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you.
So tell me about your journey as an HR professional.
So, I always, whenever I get to answer this question, I say that everyone has heard about that book, which is Accidental Prime Minister. So, my journey in HR also has been by accident. So, after my son was born, I wanted a little part-time flexible environment, and I opted for an L&D profile, which of course gave me enough flexibility and scheduling. And then from L&D, my reporting used to be to the VP HR. And when there was an opportunity, I was actually pulled inside by her, and that's how I started in HR. But so it was an accident, but it has been going on for about 17 years now. And I was in sales. I started in sales, from sales to L&D, and now full-time HR. So it's a beautiful accident.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the role of HR?
So, as HR professionals, we are expected to wear many hats. So, we wear different colors, different shapes, different sizes, different dimensions also. And I have always maintained that, somehow my deep belief has been that the primary role of HR should be to build a very performance driven culture. What happens when you actually decide your value system, one of your value systems to be performance driven, everything else, the other elements of HR would start aligning themselves to it. And so what you get is a perfect culture which talks about inclusivity, which talks about merit, which talks about retention. So, and the other things continue. Of course, there would be many operating challenges, there would be many strategic initiatives, but the goal should always be to bring in a growth-centric culture.
So what is the most exciting thing that you have come across as an HR professional?
That awareness and that feeling of being a part of a very integral part of the entire growth cycle of whether you say an organization, since I have been a part of many greenfield and brownfield projects as well. So, I have seen that entire journey, and when you see the organization and probably a entry level team member which you hired, and in 15 years span when you see them growing and reaching to a certain level, and then you realize that all the efforts you put in, those extra hours, those little bit of knickknacks between the team members and HR, when you see that growth curve, that is probably the most exciting part of being in HR.
So could you share 3 good HR practices?
See, one size would not fit all. It never fits everyone, and while we do sit across, there are multiple meetings, there are various support groups within HR fraternity, and we do share a lot of best practices with each other. I still feel that unique essential twist must be given to each and every best practice. So, the leadership teams are different, the vision is different, the growth is different, the pace is very different. So what will work for you in an excellent manner may not even work for me in a very average manner. So while I do get a lot of motivation by hearing a certain best practice, what I try to give it my that essential unique twist, and which actually talks more about my company culture, the kind of leadership team I have, and the kind of people, the team leaders I have, because implementing a practice is the most difficult part, and if your frontliners are not in agreement with that best practice which you are actually hiring from outside without actually giving it your uniqueness, it becomes a little difficult to implement. So, but I think if somebody can talk about in best practices, if one should always talk about accountability. So, if we can actually bring in a very simple way of accountability in our work schedule, and we bring in a kind of a transparency, that is the best practice which HR can actually inculcate in an organization.
I agree.
Yeah.
So what kind of technological interventions are required in today's time?
See, technology is something, whether you like it or not, whether you are completely in confidence with what amount of technology you want in your organization, whether you like it or you hate it, it's something which you just can't avoid, you can't ignore. For scaling up, for managing larger team sizes, technology is very, very important. But when we talk about technology or AI replacing the human intervention, see, my company is also, we have a lot of technology products, but then my endeavor has always been that there has to be a nice mix of human intervention and technology. So ultimately, AI is a program which is evolving, and humans have been evolving for 5,000 years. So of course, who wins the competition, we can know. So, so if it is a nice mix of both, technology is a wonderful tool.
So what matrix do you consider the most while conducting performance evaluation?
See, all the new age performance evaluation matrix have moved away from the standard template, the traditional one, where you will have your KRA, you will assign weightages, and you actually make it a very mathematical method of doing evaluation. All the new age evaluations actually are very future centric. So all your matrix, all your parameters which you consider, whatever are they need to be very future centric rather than a past tense based evaluation. Because the kind of pivot we see in business on a regular basis, every 3 months there is a new business landscape happening. So one, of course, it has to be very future centric, where you talk about the future possibilities rather than what has happened in the past and rating an employee. Second, it has to be a very holistic method. So when I say holistic, I mean not only an individual's goal, but you also need to include shared goals. So goals of team, goals of your immediate supervisor, because that is equally important. So rather than seeing my goals and your goals in isolation, the new age matrix would include both your and my goals as one individual goal, and that is how we are going to take it forward now.
So how would you address employee complaints about company policies?
Very tricky. So I was actually I go through a lot of feeds of influencers on LinkedIn. So I was going through one of the feeds where it was a startup, which of course is well-funded startup, and they have a pretty large team size. The CEO mentioned that they actually observe one day every week as a feedback day. So now we have seen many other organizations doing the same, but the difference here is that the CEO manages to go through each and every suggestion or complaint, or maybe just a one-to-one heart-to-heart talk which employee wants to have with CEO, and then instead of replying to that employee, he actually decides that this particular reply of mine as a CEO needs to go to the entire company. Now, see the tremendous amount of transparency it brings in. Everyone is aware that there is an issue. Instead of putting it under the blanket, the CEO is accepting it, and CEO is marking the reply to everyone in the setup. And that, I think, is the way one should handle employee issues or complaints, if you say so. Because rather than saying that we don't know this complaint, we are not aware of this complaint, let us accept it, come forward and say that yes, there is a challenge, we are working on it and we will resolve it. So, that is, I think, the best way of handling employees whatever you call, whether you call it a complaint or a suggestion, that is the best way.
What kind of activities can one do as a part of employee engagement and employee welfare?
See, employee welfare, though, I think more or less almost all the companies are very aware and alive towards the need. They understand that if an employee is spending 10 to 12 hours and even 14 hours in certain industries, we all know. What probably now the trend talks about is employee experience. So, we were talking about technology just now. So, technology is more about UI and UX, we always say user interface and user experience. And similarly, now HR is talking about employee interface and employee experience. So, all those various touch points throughout the life cycle of an employee, if we talk about if we talk about those experiences, I think that becomes one of the best practices for employee welfare and engagement.
So, can you give an example of a time when you had to motivate the staff?
So, I'll share a very interesting take on this. A fair duration of my career has been with pre-openings and greenfield projects, where for the first 2-3 years there is less of staff and more of mid-level and mid-senior level people who are actually conceptualizing, strategizing and implementing for pre-opening preparations. So, one is of course when you have to motivate the staff. So, that is another level. And when it is all greenfield, so there is no office, there is no cafeteria, there is no place to sit, there are no ACs, there are portable washrooms. And at that time, the demand or the expectations from HR are very different. And come what may, HR has a limited scope of actually providing those facilities which are otherwise would have been a very basic facilities for employees. So, we were in a greenfield project. So, it kept on for about 2-3 years, since it was a large scale project and there was a lot of development happening. And we had a mid-senior level, a full team of about 120 people. And we had no place to sit and eat. So, and that time when people would come to us and say that that's okay, you don't have enough offices, there is no AC, but at least give us something where we can eat properly. So, motivation need not to be of this level always. Even those small little things, when as an HR you need to keep motivating them that this is the way it is going to happen, we are together in this and we will sail through. So, greenfield has given a lot of incidents like this. Yeah.
So, any message for youngsters who are aspiring to join HR as a profession?
So, that famous phrase that what they don't teach you in MBA is very applicable to HR students. What happens is HR is 10% theory, 90% experiential, and in colleges just the opposite happens. They are 99% theory and just 1%, and sometimes even not that. So, what happens is when they actually come on board and while they are on their jobs, they realize that whatever we learned is definitely, it gives them a base and a kind of a confidence, but for application they need to rely on their experience. So, what I always tell to so we are also a part of a mentorship team for few colleges, and I always keep telling all the students, whether it is HR or finance or marketing, that what the first thing they need to understand to be in the business, because you are in the business and business, the ultimate thing is talking about top line and bottom line. So, what especially for an HR professional, what they need to understand is they need to understand the concept of spending and investing. You know, HR is not about spending, HR is not about event management, HR is not about hosting a lot of parties. HR is actually about investing in people, investing in their growth, investing in their development, investing in yourself as well. So, whenever you decide to get into HR, whether you have a formal background in HR or not, just remember that you need to continuously reskill and upskill yourself, because that's the only way you can invest in people. So,
Good to hear that.
that's how, I mean, one must understand this.
Right. Well, it's been a great discussion, and I'm happy that you have been a part of this show.
Thank you. Thank you to you as well. And it's always a pleasure talking to you and discussing things which we usually do. And it's good to hear each other's perspective, and especially when it is about HR. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.